at the end of the day, what matters is you are your happiest self, your happiness, right? And so what I try to do is distill nutrition information, include like intuitive eating and habit building principles so that you can create the situation for yourself related to food that just makes you the happiest version of you.
You're listening to the Kristof Lewis podcast, a podcast where I have conversations with inspirational people. My name is Chris, but my family calls me Kristof. My goal is to have as many conversations as possible with people who have forged their own path by pursuing their dreams, making them a reality, all the while emitting positivity and sharing this knowledge with others. I seek these people out and share this information with you, proving to the world that you can do what makes you happy and do what you want for a living while being a good human being. We'll talk about careers, but we'll also cover any story that inspires. Let's do this while helping each other. Thanks for listening. I'm happy you're here. What's going on, my friends? What's going on? Welcome to the Kristof Lewis podcast. This is conversation number 68, and I'm so excited that you're here. I'm having a wonderful day. Just recorded a wonderful conversation with the wonderful Rachel Paul. Rachel Paul is the College Nutritionist, and she's a wonderful human being. She's very pleasant to talk to. She has a PhD. She's also a registered dietitian, and she's a very happy-go-lucky, super informative, very smart, down-to-earth person, and I can't wait for you to hear her story. You can hear her story and everybody else's conversation that I've had over the last 15 months, I think, on kristoflewispodcast.com/podcast, and you can follow me and see the rest of them on Instagram at Kristof Lewis. So I hope you guys are well. I hope you guys are having a great day, and if you want to read some books, find some books to read. If you're in a reading frenzy like I am, you can head over to kristoflewis.com/book challenge and see all the books I've read. I'm reading a book a week for a year, hoping to beat 52. And on Instagram, I share the book I'm reading for the week. So I hope you check that out. And remember that you're not a bad reader if you think you're a bad reader. I manifested that. That's not the case. That was very much self-inflicted. So I can't wait to share those books with you, and I hope you enjoy this. So without further ado, welcome to the Kristof Lewis podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm going to come out of the starting blocks right away and say congratulations on your engagement.
Thank you. I'm so excited. We're really happy.
Mine was like 3.5 or 4 years ago, and I still remember it. I remember every single detail of it.
That's so wonderful.
It's exciting, huh? It's so incredible. It's such a great feeling, and those are just like, there's a lot of life moments that you'll just never, ever forget because they're so special, and that's one of them. So I'm like, I saw that, like 2 days ago, right? So that's so exciting. It's so fresh, and it feels like it happened just a moment ago.
I know. It still doesn't seem like real.
It doesn't. Yeah, it's like, who is this fiance that I keep on calling and somebody keeps on calling me their fiance? It's just such a weird word.
Right. That's exactly right.
My wife and I were joking. I was like, it sounds pretentious. Like, I feel like I shouldn't be calling you that.
I know.
Gosh.
It's like extra.
No, that's really exciting. It's really exciting. So I know how that feels. And man, there's just so many other good things coming your guys' way. So that's really exciting. But I wanted to start talking off by you because I want to always talk about the guests. So you, your account, I found you on Instagram, and it's just so exciting to me always to find people like that. And you, like I was saying a little bit off camera, you affect a lot of people. You influence over 300,000 people. You've coached over 1,000 people. And you're just how you are right now. If you're listening and you're not watching the YouTube video, you're just smiling, and it's very sincere and genuine, and you're just a very nice person, and that obviously comes off in all of your other videos and things that I've seen. So that's why I wanted to talk to you. But I want to know, like, why did you choose the career that you have? And then the second part of that will be, why did you choose to do it on social media and try to affect people in such a way?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had a lot of problems with eating growing up in kind of like emotional eating types of ways. And
Sure.
I thought that I could really give back to this population because, especially at the time and still now, there wasn't a lot of nutrition information for college students or for young adults. There was nutrition information for those who had heart disease or a
Yeah.
stroke or whatever it was, but not for this population specifically. And I thought that, I could really be that voice, and I could really help people. And of course that's all I
Yeah.
want now as well. But it really just started. I just wanted to give back since I was
That's so cool.
incredibly confused.
Yeah, no, it is really confusing. So I guess like one of the things that I've seen a lot, and I just talked about it in one of my solo podcasts that just came out a couple of days ago, is like it's the filtering of the information. It's not necessarily all the information. It's hard to get information because there's an infinite amount of information out there, but it's hard to filter that infinite amount of information. So there's literally thousands, if not tens of thousands of influencers that are fitness, nutrition, everything like that. So to be able to find somebody that's legitimate, has a PhD, has a RD, like all these things out there, I think is a lot more rare than just finding somebody that just started doing it. Not to say that they're wrong, but it definitely holds a lot more water when somebody has these credentials behind it. So, and it's cool because you have like that niche of college nutritionist. So why did you pick that? I mean, it catered to you. It seems like that was your thing.
Yeah, I think the college age is just such an interesting stage of life because you have this newfound autonomy that is just kind of thrown at you.
Sure.
And you have huge responsibilities that you did not have before. There wasn't even kind of an ease of transition into responsibilities. It was just kind of all of a sudden you have to get to class yourself and work out and eat well and make friends, and it's like all of the things all at once. So it's a really interesting just time of life.
Absolutely. Yeah, it kind of goes with that filtering of information too. And for the first time, or for I would say the majority of people, that's their first time, quote unquote, out on their own. So they have to run their own schedules. And a lot of times when you're running your own schedule, you don't run it very well when you do it for the first time. And a lot of the things that go, especially in college, are your sleep, your food, all of these things. So it's very interesting to me. I didn't really experience that. Everybody on here knows that like I was a college dropout. I did 2 years at a community college and it just wasn't for me. And it wasn't until later in life, till like my mid-20s, that I really found like a really filtered importance of self-education. Like that was really everything. I was just fueling myself, and I really realized that, wow, I really love learning, and that just wasn't the avenue for me. So it's cool to see that you absolutely rocked that avenue and you did it like that, because I always like tell people like college is good and college has its place, and college is like really helpful for a lot of people that have these, chosen careers that want to go down that avenue, but it's not like an end all be all. You don't have to go down this way, but it's cool to show you on this end of the spectrum saying like, hey, here's somebody that's done it successfully. And then one of the other things I like talking about, well, there's so many brackets that you hit, but one of the things is like utilizing social media for the good, right? Because so many people are like bashing it nowadays, like, oh, it's draining people and it's so bad for you. And it is if you use it for that. But here's an example of you're using it for good. You're reaching people and you're helping people with all this knowledge that you got while in college. So I think that's incredible.
Absolutely. And I actually did take some time off of college to actually focus on something and kind of reset myself. So
that's important to note. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I completely agree that you have to be mature in order to
Absolutely.
take full advantage of college, right?
Exactly.
And it's so expensive, and it just, it's a lot of pressure, and
and it comes with everything you were saying earlier too, like that whole transitional phase of like running your own schedule. And are you mature enough for it? And I can answer that question very honestly right now. Like I definitely wasn't mature enough for it. Like I was very selfish and I had all these other things that I wanted to do, and they had nothing to do with education at the time. And I look back and I go, oh my gosh, I wish I would have taken advantage of it more. And maybe not necessarily college, but just learning in general. I'm a huge advocate of just this constant flow of information and knowledge into my brain. Like I always want to be learning, always, always, always. So I wish I had that mindset earlier, but I guess better late than never. Like I started in my mid-20s, and now I'm 31 now. I had to think for a second. I'm 31 now, so like at least I've had it for a little while. And some people I think never get to that age or that mental aptitude of, like you said, people in college they have to grow up, and some people never grow up, and some people never get to that point where they think that knowledge is, a requirement to better yourself every single day.
Right.
And
Yeah,
yeah.
I completely agree.
Yeah, and then obviously with social media so big, I think it was maybe an obvious choice for someone like yourself to utilize the power of social media to reach everybody. What drew you to social media and utilizing that as a tool for your businesses at first?
Yeah, I first started the College Nutritionist when I became a registered dietitian, so right after I graduated with my master's. And I didn't really do anything with it for a number of years until I picked it back up about a year and a half, 2 years ago. But when I first started it, it was just, that's what everyone was doing. It was, Instagram was new. So it was this like new, cool thing. It was actually much easier to grow back then. So I grew, a few thousand followers during that time. And during my PhD, I had to take a few years break because I was just so busy. I just had too many other things to do. And I had more of like a hate relationship with social media at that point because it really, like you said, it seemed so superficial.
It can absolutely be.
Yeah, and it just kind of makes you feel bad about yourself and whatever it is. But the last year of my PhD, I had actually completed a lot of my dissertation. I had a lot of things done, and I had some extra time. I was waiting on data in order to analyze it, but I had some extra time. And I felt that the college population was still not targeted with good nutrition information. So I thought, I might as well try to pick this back up and like see if I can make something out of it.
Yeah, you definitely have.
Yeah, I know. It's been crazy. Even though I did feel that Instagram, was so superficial and, it was so silly. The truth is, though, is that that's where everyone is, right? You can't
100%. Yeah.
You can't kind of ignore that. And so I kind of had to swallow my pride that social media was superficial. That's a good point, too. And try and embrace it.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Like being able to adapt, overcome, being able to pivot, pull an audible, and even though it seemed like this ugly, superficial being, it's good to just be like, all right, well, let's take another look at this. Let's see like how we can use this as a tool. And especially you got in on it a little bit earlier. So that's good. Well, of course, you don't know that at the time, but you still look at it. And you're like, well, this is a tool. Obviously, I can reach a ton of people here. So, let's do this again and again, like going back to filters. We can apply filters to social media. So you can follow, unfollow people, follow the hashtags that you like, that don't like. And if there's positivity, frankly, I just cut it out myself because I don't want that. So if somebody's constantly doing something negative or whatever, like cut it out. So it can be that easy. There's other certain predicaments where it's harder with family and certain friends maybe. But I think on the whole, for the most part, you can cut most of the fat, you can trim most of the fat on social media. So I'm glad to see that you kind of gave it a second chance, and obviously you've been flourishing since. So not only have you done the College Nutritionist stuff, which is very cool that you're targeting that, but you've done and continue to do a lot of entrepreneurship. So you're not just teaching people diets and everything else that you just spoke about, but you're also an entrepreneur, and you are offering, tens of classes, at least from what I've seen, a lot of classes for people. So doing what you said is one thing with social media and taking your schooling and applying that to help other people. But why did you decide to extend another path and go down towards the route of entrepreneurship, especially after being someone who had college under their belt already? Like, why not take like a lot of people come out of college with a degree, regardless of what it is, and they go, I need to get this kind of job, I need to get a corporate job, or I need to do that. But you've taken a completely different direction. I think it's very interesting, so I really want to know why.
Yeah, and it wasn't even just college. I mean, I had my bachelor's, my master's, and my PhD. So I had like really a lot.
That's really I didn't mean to sell you short there, but no, that's absolutely a lot.
it's just so funny because this is not what I had ever thought I would be doing.
Yeah,
right? Because
and that's what I like hearing. It's so interesting to hear that, because a lot of people, I want to encourage people to kind of pivot, create their own career. And even though you've gone to schooling, and not even just like one set of school, like you've gone the way. You've gone the extent, and then now you've still been able to pivot and do this way.
Right. And you know, I thought the reason I did a PhD is because I wanted to work in the government. And then when I was doing the PhD, I thought, oh, maybe I'll stay in academia. I really like research. But kind of then being in the academic setting, I mean, there's a few issues that I had with it. The first issue is that things kind of move very slowly. So for you to do a research study, you have to come up with a concept, and then you have to get funding, and then you have to do the study and publish the results. And so kind of by the time you've done all that, it's been like 10 years, and things aren't like that relevant anymore. So, I mean, especially for something like social media, which changes so frequently.
Daily.
You know, it wasn't really, you know, I didn't really like that much. And it was something like social media, I can change something like that. Right? Yes. If something's not working, I will change it immediately. And I love that.
No, you're absolutely right. That's a phenomenal point. And I've done a lot of studying in that sense too, when people were talking about exactly what you said, things become irrelevant so quickly. So when you're studying things for such an extended period of time, it takes years to get these degrees that by the time you get out, it's just the stuff that you've read and you've studied and you've been lectured on in the first year can very well be irrelevant by the time you hit your junior year. So when you extend that off to 4, 8, 10 years, you can only imagine a decade goes by and now you're getting to apply. I mean, holy crap, think about 9 years ago. I can't even remember what I ate for lunch this weekend, you know, like, so to think about the information all the way back from 5, 10 years ago, and then be able to apply that correctly in a way to correctly, for the time, the current day, the present day, teach somebody is very archaic to me. So I think it's very, very interesting for me to, like, as an observation, to see that you deduce that yourself and you've now figured out how to use this tool for the better, not the negative, like a lot of people say, again, but for the better, and then be able to just get in the times and then be able to give this information out immediately and not just hold on to it for years before you're able to do that. I think that's a really important point to make.
Thank you. Yeah. And I would say the second thing is just kind of the red tape and the hierarchies and not being able to be your own boss. And then I would say the third thing is that at the time I had a 2-hour commute each way, and that was not fun. So.
That's terrible. And I feel like that's double-edged too. Like, I feel it's double-edged in the sense of, well, first of all, anything's how you perceive it. Like, I hate traffic, so it just stresses me out. However, if I have to be in it, I like have to talk myself through it and be like, okay, we're here. And then I just utilize the crap out of it. And I listen to podcasts or audiobooks, but it's literally, I think it's always podcasts. So you can use it for how you want. So I think if you're obligated to do something like that, then, you know, you can't control it to a point. Like, unless you choose to change your job, like you just said, that's a great point. Like, you obviously have the options, but if you choose to do that, make the best of it and utilize your time. Because if, that's 4 hours a day. Like, if you're wasting 4 hours a day, I mean, you don't have many of those kind of hours to waste.
Absolutely. And that I did, you know, want to say this at some point, but the listening to audiobooks related to business and personal development has really been kind of life-changing and so helpful for me with this entrepreneurial stuff. So anyway, I'm sure we'll get to that, but it like you said, it's just...
Absolutely. And just that continued education, which we keep on talking about. And like a really quick tangent, if people have told me that they can't really listen to audiobooks because their mind starts to wander. So if you are one of those people, I would highly encourage you to up it to about 1.5 speed or about 2 times speed. And then you're like, at first you're going to hear it, you're like, this is crazy, Chris is crazy, but it allows you, or it forces you, I should say, to listen, to like actually engage yourself, and you can listen a lot better, and then you're actually engaged in what you're hearing.
Yep. And I a lot of times I listen at 1.25 or 1.5 times the speed. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's great. I want to say, I wrote one thing down I saw on your website, and I wrote it down here, and I thought it was so cool. It was on your front page, so obviously tons of people see it, but I really liked it. It hit a chord with me. So it says, the idea of getting paid for what you love isn't just some Instagrammable goal for you. It's honestly how you want to live your life. Is it what you believe deeply about how work should be? You know that you want the freedom to create the job of your dreams and that it is achievable. So I love that for all of the reasons, but one of the reasons is that I think a lot of times people sell themselves short. So to read that and to see that you have the ability to affect so many people, influence so many people, and then that people are reading that is really important to me. Do you feel as if like from, especially because you've coached over 1,000 people, so you'd be able to probably tell me a lot better than I could tell you, but do you see people selling themselves short? And then the second part of that would be, why do you think that's the case?
Yes, I mean, absolutely. I think people are selling themselves short because they don't believe that their goals are actually attainable. And one of the things that I've learned, and I'm continuing to, emphasize in my own life, is that if you get into the mindset and really put yourself into the situation in your mind that you want to be in, that from what I've read, and I've read a lot about it, that is supposed to really help you actually move forward, and kind of embrace this future self. That to be. So I think it's just, honestly, what I found, and myself included, it's just your perception of reality and not thinking that what your goal is actually attainable. And once you change your mindset, then a whole lot of doors open up.
Yeah, change your mind, change your life. Really is so applicable, and it's so funny. I like jokingly said this to somebody else the other day, but I was like, if you can believe it, you can achieve it. Like, obviously we've heard that's like been around for a hot minute, but honestly, like, if you can imagine it, then more than likely you can do it. And especially, like, I like the believe it, achieve it, because if you believe in yourself that you can do it, then do it. And like, frankly, I would just challenge anybody listening to be like, if you have goals, then just for shits and giggles, like, set one of those goals like 2 times as high or 10 times as high, and go for it, with everything you have. If like that's what you really want to do, go for it, and go for it full force and see what happens. And I guarantee you nothing bad is going to happen from that. Like, only good things can come from upping your goals. And if you don't get them, obviously, it's not like you're a failure by any means whatsoever. It just means like, hey, you have to remind yourself, I set my goal a lot higher. And you probably, by setting it higher, like if you set a 1 times goal to 10 times goal, then you're probably going to hit 2-3 times. And if you hit 2 to 3 times, that's way better than just setting it at a 1 time scope. So very encouraging of people to do that. Yeah.
And you haven't gotten there yet. Right?
Oh gosh, I love that. I'm so happy that you said that. You haven't gotten there yet. I mean, if you give up, yes, that's a sure path to not be able to get it. But one of the favorite things I love to say is like, don't make a plan B, because everybody says it. So I go against the grain. I was like, just find another way to get plan A to work. So just because like I always say, like, just because this vehicle breaks down that you're chugging along in to get to plan A, and you're like, oh crap, like I blew a tire, like this sucks. Well, like, get out, either change the tire or get another vehicle, and like close the door, turn on your favorite podcast, the Kristof Lewis podcast, and keep on going again,
That's right. I love that. Yeah, I'm going to use that. That's great.
Yeah, it's a mindset. It's like you were talking about traveling in your vehicle in traffic or something. It's a mindset. How do you react to things? And that's pretty much all it boils down to. What's your favorite thing about what you do right now? I'm super curious. I mean, you have your hands in a lot of things. You had a PhD. That's very, very impressive. And then the RD, and then you're a social media guru, in my opinion. And you're just like so bubbly and happy. And you reached over 1,000 people. And everything that you're doing, like, do you have like a favorite thing about that?
I've thought about this a lot recently. What I really love to do is be creative and distill complicated information into very basic concepts.
I love that. That's very cool. That's a great answer. That's a very unique answer. And I always say, like, I work in IT, and like everything's just complicated to me because I'm like relatively new to the sector. And I'm always like, that doesn't make any sense. That sounds like a different language. So like, explain it to me like I'm a 5-year-old. So that's like your answer, like they say, if you can explain it to a 5-year-old, then you can actually explain it. So to be able to articulate yourself in that manner of saying, I take all these complicated things and I break them down and I go, here's this information, And I think that that is like the ultimate way of ensuring that you truly know that information, when you're able to like articulate yourself in that manner to somebody that doesn't even know what it is. So I think that's a phenomenal answer.
Thank you. Yeah, and unfortunately, I forget which personality test this was, but I love personality tests.
Sure.
I've taken them all. But one of them, that's what it came up with is, and I don't remember what the trait was called, but it was like distilling information. I thought, yes, that's me. I like that.
That's me. I sold it. That's so crazy. What?
Right.
And now again on the topic of, and you've kind of answered this, but if you had to answer it a little bit shorter, but obviously, like we said, you positively affect many people with the knowledge that you are continuously learning yourself. But I always like asking everybody, like, why do you choose, or why do you enjoy to help people? Like, you could as easily, like, a lot of people can amount all of the success or knowledge in their life, and they can easily keep it to themselves. But obviously, it can be very time consuming doing what you're doing. And I know it is for me doing a podcast. And so why do you choose to do that? Why do you choose to reach out to people on such a massive scale?
Yeah, I mean, the most important thing to me that I realized when I was going through all of my issues is that my happiness was the most important thing, right? Not my weight, not eating a certain food because it was trendy. Like, at the end of the day, like, I need to be the happiest version of me.
Absolutely.
And I think that a lot of people, especially now, like you were saying, there's so much misinformation out there. There's just so much information that people kind of lose that sense of, at the end of the day, what matters is you are your happiest self, your happiness, right? And so what I try to do is distill nutrition information, include like intuitive eating and habit building principles, so that you can create the situation for yourself related to food that just makes you the happiest version of you. Like, I will take the stress off of you. I will help you with meal planning. I will show you, good nutritious foods to eat, and also ways for you to include pizza and chocolate or whatever it is, so that you can just get the food out of your mind and you can focus on just being your happiest self and living your happiest life.
Yeah, what I love about entrepreneurs, well, I love a lot of things about entrepreneurs, but from what I've seen, most of them want to help other people. They're solving a problem, and I think that's on a raw level to an extent. That's what entrepreneurship is. It's, what is the problem out in the world? How can I add value to somebody, to people? And then let me try to fix this problem. And they work these long, tiring hours, and they really just love what they do. I mean, because you can't work that hard and that long without really loving what you do. But I just very, very often see that they love helping people, and I think that's quite incredible. And I think it's very different than people that perhaps go into corporate jobs and make lots and lots of money in that realm, which is fine if that's for you. But like I said, entrepreneurship is very unique in the sense it attracts a very unique individual, maybe a crazy person to want to do something like that. But I think I always just default back to, I think it's really incredible for people to not only essentially have all that time doing what they want, but essentially donating their time to helping other people and giving up their information that they've worked really hard at learning. And I think that takes a very special person to work that hard for themselves, and then also just to, freely just give that information out to other people. I think it's very unique and very special, and that's what I strive to highlight here, amongst other things, is, we've talked about a few of these things, like, you didn't necessarily have like a career. I take that back. You did have I was going to say you didn't have a career transition, but you did, in a sense, because you went to college and you didn't really go the path that maybe you had initially intended to go. And then you kind of took it the way we said. And then I talk about helping others, and we talked about education. Again, even with you, education is very interesting how you took your path. And I think that's all just very interesting. The whole story that you've described here is really cool. And then recently I've been asking people, I am on this book reading spree of where I'm reading a book a week for a year. And I used to be a terrible reader. I think that was the self-inflicted wound that I believed, talking about things that I believed, and I changed my own trajectory there. But do you have a favorite book that you could maybe recommend to me and the listeners?
Yeah, so I listen to books in the morning to put myself in the good mindset.
Very cool.
So I have in different months, I have different books on repeat. And I do like listening to things on repeat because it really kind of creates like a subconscious thoughts, right? Like things that you hear over and over again, you then start to believe is the truth.
Yes, absolutely.
And so, can I tell you a number of books? Maybe not.
100%. Yes, you can.
Okay. So like last summer and fall, I listened on repeat, and seriously, like I could recite those books. So
Wow.
Jen Sincero's books, "You Are a Badass," those series. Have you read those?
I haven't. No. Sounds like I should though.
Yeah, they're really good. And then Denise Duffield Thomas, she wrote some books on. They're more on entrepreneurship.
Okay.
Kind of getting in a different type of money mindset because I'm still striving to change this, but I was in a very lack money mindset for a long time.
Can you describe that? What do you mean by a lack money mindset?
Yeah, that there's like not enough money to go around, and I shouldn't spend money to
like a scarcity mindset kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's a real. Yeah. Absolutely. I don't know if I suffer from that is the right way to say that, but I do also. I have that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and something that they say over and over again is that you have to focus. Your time is your most valuable resource.
100%. Yes.
If you are spending your time on these menial tasks that you could pay someone else to do, you can't get into your genius zone like enough.
Yeah, I've been struggling with that. I've definitely been struggling with that myself. I'm a one-man band with the podcast. I edit everything. I do everything. I post everything. I am the man for the job. So one of the things that takes the most time is editing. So personally me, I've been thinking about kind of partitioning that off and getting somebody to do that for me. And then the whole money thing. But then I was listening to a podcast. I can't remember who it was. It may have been the Bigger Pockets podcast with real estate, but they were mentioning hey, me paying somebody $80 to do something in my lawn is not me paying somebody $80 to do something in my lawn. It's me paying $80 to spend that time with my daughter for an hour, or something like that. So I think if you kind of, again, it's how you perceive things. So if you kind of reverse engineer your mindset about how you spend money, and it's not necessarily because you said you and I both have that scarcity mindset. So if you kind of reverse engineer your mind, I'm not spending money just to spend money. Clearly you're spending it on something constructive, and like you said, the most valuable asset is time. So if we're able to buy that time back, then why would we not do that? At a certain point, I always describe it as you make X amount of money. If you make over X amount of money, you can live that quote unquote comfortable life. You could at least pay your bills and you're not in fear of getting evicted. Then after that money, then it's very, you don't have to be, or it's hard to train yourself with the scarcity mindset. But after that threshold, spend your money to get your time back. Make sure you can take care of yourself, take care of your family, and you can pay for food, rent, mortgage, or whatever. But after that, start to maybe think about how to best spend your money to get some of your time back. So I think, I definitely know that's what I'm struggling with here with myself. So I'm very curious to hear you say that yourself. And how have you been able to combat that scarcity mindset for yourself? How have you slowly made those decisions to kind of push in that direction?
It's hard. I mean, I know some people can kind of change their mindsets very quickly, and I think also coming from academia where you make, $15,000 a year as a student, just so tight with money for so long that it's hard.
It's really ingrained. Yeah.
Something that's been really helpful within these books are coming up with affirmations that work for me and that I can kind of take on to believe for myself. So some of them that I really like are, the more money I make, the more people I can help.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's a good one.
Yeah. And then also some really good ones are good questions to think about. So what negative belief about money am I willing to release to make a positive impact in the world?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a really good one. Mm-hmm. If I had to create my life's wealth in the next year, what would I embrace and what would I let go of? what would I do if my savings were rock solid and I could spend money freely that was coming in? And I think with like a lot of these, it's hiring out, right? If that is something that I struggle with, that I'm trying to change, and kind of embracing that. I know it would just enable me to get to get to the next level.
Absolutely. And I think at least you and I are at least in the place, I think much like anything, is first identifying that that's an issue within your life, or maybe you see it as an issue. And then if you've identified that as such, then at that point, okay, good, you like mark that off. So now how do we move forward with that? And then of course, you can speak with people like we're speaking, or go on the internet and do it that way. But I think just at least being cognizant of the fact, and then if you want to truly better it and better yourself in that area, then you have like we were saying about social media, like it's essentially infinite amount of people that you can reach out to and that have probably struggled with this before. And that's why I always encourage people, why I love conversations so much, is I always encourage people to share their stories. I want to share your story. I want to share everybody's story. So if you're struggling with the scarcity mindset or whatever it is with finances or whatever it is, go ahead and just make peace with it, identify it, move on, and hopefully share your story in hopes to help other people.
Right. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Rachel, I've absolutely enjoyed my time with you today. Thank you so much for being here with me.
Thank you so much for having me. I've had such a wonderful time.
Yeah, it's always blows me away how quickly 30 minutes goes. And it just, I think it goes to speak how wonderful each guest is that I speak with. And it's just so humbling to hear your story and share it with us. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
See ya.